So good morning, everybody. It is a wonderful weekend, sunny and pretty chilly in Vermont. We are going to take the CL out this morning, and we are going to give a review of the Comptech Icebox on this car. The Comptech Icebox, quick couple notes here. This is a discontinued modification for this car. It no longer is purchasable, but you can find it obviously used. And that's what we were able to do here with this car. This car has the automatic version, so there are some parts that you'll need to extend the intake tube just a bit, approximately about 2 to 3 inches, I believe, to make the modification work for this car. Now, it's pretty basic in the sense that it's a box design with an intake filter and a scoop that kind of hangs below the traditional intake inlet for this car, and allows you to draw in colder air. So let's get started on the review here. Okay, we've got a couple of cars here. Just gets going. Right off the bat, what we notice here is a little bit sharper throttle response. It is noticeable, but not like overly noticeable over the stock intake, which is pretty nice. You don't get a large induction noise, at least I didn't in that takeoff. So what we'll do here is go into town. Let's just see what happens when we go ahead and do normal driving conditions. Normally on the other reviews that I've done, I've taken you guys down the right turn here. So let's go ahead and see if we can just go into town here. Normal driving, really below 3,000 RPM right now. And then we'll get on the interstate and do a little bit of a pull going on the interstate and see if we notice anything there. So my initial impressions are that it's pretty quiet. Like I said, not a lot of intake noise. Usually with a traditional cold air intake or a short ram intake, you can hear that induction noise. You don't really get that induction noise, or at least I haven't yet, just because I think that box that the cone goes in, so it's a box with a cone in it, like I said, with a tube that hangs lower to draw in that colder air, hence the term hence the product name, the Icebox. So you're not really getting that loud induction noise that you would normally get with a cold air or short ram. So if you're looking for that, maybe this isn't the product for you. Now, I'm not really looking for a lot of induction noise. In my experience, it's more noise than benefit when you're talking about those cold air intakes. Maybe you get a couple horsepower bump, but not noticeable typically. Yeah, this is a pretty mild driving experience with the intake so far. I know some people will say that an intake like this is really engineered for performance, not for the induction noise. So I would have to agree with that as well. So in Vermont here, you can see there's a lot of construction going on. This is pretty typical. We have these long winters and not a lot gets done about 6 months out of the year. So as soon as the weather warms up in the slightest to the point where you can get rid of the snow, people start construction efforts. Yeah, I mean, so you do get definitely a little bit of noise, more throttle noise, so to speak, with the intake. Definitely hear that engine more. Let's go into the higher RPM range here. We'll let this truck go by us. Okay. And let's give it the beans. I won't disclose how fast that was, but I will say that we pulled it up to about 6,500 RPM, and the noise that you heard was pure engine, not really a lot of exhaust there. So that's good. I mean, so if you're looking for it at the higher RPM range, where you want that really throaty engine note, that might be a good balance here. So you don't pick it up on the low end when you're driving through town like some of the other intakes that you would normally experience, that kind of noise. That's not there on the lower RPM range, but when you get past probably about 4,500 RPMs, you really get a good crisp note of that intake. Now, once again, we're on the highway. We're kind of cruising we're in 6th gear right now at about 2,500 RPM, and you really don't get anything. So that's interesting, that when you want it to be quiet, it can be quiet. You're not really being burdened with a lot of exterior engine notes at that RPM range of cruising. But when you really want to get on it, you do. You get that note, which is really pleasing to the ear when you're up in that higher RPM range. You can hear the engine more. You can hear the VTEC crossover just a tad, not a lot, but you can hear where it kind of like goes whoop, like a little bit of an increase where the cam lobes are shifting over to that VTEC range. So that's very, very pleasing, I would say. All in all, this modification, if you can get it at a decent price and you can get a good working one, might be a good upgrade for your normal intake. For me on this car, I would say that it would fit very well, because I don't want somebody to open up the hood and go, oh my god, this person is taking an older car like this and just modifying it with AEM intakes or InGen intakes or something like that, where it's really I don't want to say, but more of a 90s kind of 2000 upgrade, where people were just throwing in cold air intakes. This modification, when you open the hood, it looks very stock, very original equipment. I mean, there's a little bit of a flash on there with the words Comptech, but other than that, you open the hood and you wouldn't know the difference. And that's kind of nice too, being able to have a more original equipment look, but still gain a little bit of a performance modification upgrade, both in performance and in sound. Now, the performance, if you're buying this for performance, you're not going to get much out of this. You may get a little sharper throttle response, like I said, but all in all, this is more about the driving experience, I would say. The ability to hear the engine more in those higher RPM ranges, or that ability to feel like that you're actually getting in the throttle and getting a return on your investment when you're planting that foot down. So take that into consideration when you're shopping for an intake, that it's more diverse than just throwing in a cold air intake, that you may want to gravitate more towards an OEM one, and there is one that you can find. Like I said, this is discontinued, so it'll be a little bit harder to find, and you can use the automatic version like I did in this setup for the 6-speed manual. Now, you can't go the opposite way. You can't take a 6-speed Comptech Icebox setup and put it into an automatic, because you'd have to cut it down. This is really taking a shorter tube and extending it, and I go into detail into my first video about how you go about doing that. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Go ahead and let me know what your thoughts are on this intake if you have it, and if you have a different intake, I'd be curious to hear what you have to say about your experience with that intake. And we'll catch you on the next one.